Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and Mir Hashem today we're going to have a little bit of an abbreviated share, but we will complete Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph and finish off Siman Kof Ayin Ches. Before we begin our learning today, our learning should be as chos for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and the Sunnah Batzara Bashivya Ha'imdim Bein Bayam U'Bein Bayabasha Makim Yerachem Aleihem V'Yaitziam Yitzar L'Rvacha Me'afelo La'Oiro Mishibud L'Geula Hashtar Bagalov Zman Kariv and Emar Amen. Our learning should be as chosr for Shalema for our real Yosef ben Miriam Rezel, Meir ben Chayes Sarah, and for Chava Hadassah Bas Rezel Serel. They should all have a refuah Shalema b'Sarch Shar Chayla Yisrael. So we pick up today on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, second line down in the Shulchan Aruch, middle of the line, Siman Kof Ayin Ches Sif Hey. We have been speaking very much in this siman between the differences between dvarim hatzrichem bracha b'mkaiman, foods that when you eat them you're required to make a bracha achrona in the place where you made the original bracha rishona and you ate those foods. So for example, when you have a seuda al hapas, when you wash the tilos yadayim, you make hamoitzi on pas and you eat a seuda with pas, you're mechuyev to make the Birkas HaMazon in the place where you ate. So the pas would be a davar hatzarich bracha b'mkaimam. It needs a bracha achrona in the place where you ate. Something like peros, fruits, an apple, or something like a shahakal, a coffee. Those are dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha b'mkaimam. On those type of foods, you're not required to make the bracha achrona where you actually consumed the food. Now, I've been very careful throughout this siman. Whenever we spoke about dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, I always used the example of pas. I never used any other kind of example. Now we're going to see what exactly is included in dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam and what are not. And as we've seen already in this siman, there's another very big nafkamina. It's not only a nafkamina to the halacha of whether or not you have to go back and make the bracha achrona where you ate the food, but it's also negeya very much to the way we paskin when it comes to the shaila of shina makom. We paskin like the Ramah back at Sif Aleph, and the Ramah said that the problem of shina makom does not exist by dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam. Something like pas, where you need to go back for Birkas HaMazon, we don't recognize Shinu Makom as being a problem, at least b'di'evet. Lichatchila, the Ramah said, even by Dvarim Hatzrichim Bracha B'mkaiman, we really, lichatchila, should not make a Shinu Makom. But b'di'evet, if somebody did make a Shinu Makom, he's not going to make a new Bracha Rishona, he's not required to first make a Bracha Achrona what he already ate, it's all not Negeya. But when it comes to dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, over there shinu makom does become a problem, according to the Ramah. Now, the Ramah never requires you to make two bracha achronos. You would only make one bracha achrona to cover everything that you ate before the shinu makom and after the shinu makom. But if you make a shinu makom by dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, you're going to have to make a new bracha rishona. So now we need to know what foods are considered dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, and what foods are considered dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha b'mkaimam. Says the Mechaber Sifhei. Yesh Oimrim, there are those that say sheshivas haminim tu'unim bracha la'achreim b'mkaimam. There are those that say that all of the shivas haminim, so that would mean even fruits like pomegranates and dates, right? These would also, olives, these would all be considered dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam. So anything that you would make a bracha b'ein shalosh on, anything that you would make what we call colloquially ala michya, but not only ala michya, ala eitz v'al priya eitz, anything that comes from the shivas haminim. If you eat grapes, grapes are shivas haminim. Any food from the shivas haminim that you eat, those are all considered dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, where you have to go back to make the bracha achrona where you actually ate the food. So yesh oimrim sheshivas haminim tu'unim bracha la'achreim b'mkaimam. V'yesh oimrim, however, there are those that say the dafka mine dagon, not all the shivas haminim, only the mine dagon, chita, sa'ira, So if you have a piece of cake, that's dvar batzrichim bracha bimkaimam, because that's mine dogon. Those are grain-based. So for that's dvar batzrichim bracha bimkaimam. So again, the first opinion over here in Sif A says all the Shivas Aminim, including the peiros, including the fruits of the Shivas Aminim, are considered dvar hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam. And now we have a second opinion, the Yesharmim Dedafke Mine Dogon, not fruits, not grapes, not olives, not pomegranates. The second opinion says no, not all Shivas Aminim. The peiros of the Shivas Aminim are not considered dvar batzrichim bracha bimkaimam, but the Mine Dogon are. Those would be considered dvar batzrichim bracha bimkaimam. Haggah, says the Ramah, v'yeshaimrim dafka pas levad. And then there are those that say, brings us down from the Gos Maimoni, that no, it's only pas, only bread is considered dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam, not anything else. So again, we have three shitas over here. We have the most expansive shita. The most expansive shita holds that all of the Shivas Aminim are considered dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam. We have the middle shita. The middle shita holds not all the Shivas Aminim, but the mine dogon. The mine dogon, the grain-based products, those are dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam. And then we have the most limited shita brought down by the Ramah, the Agos Maimoni, who says it's only pas that you bench on. That's the only thing that's considered dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Kat Mem Gimel. La'achareim bimkaimam. So we're discussing here which foods require you to go back to make a bracha achrona in the place where you ate. Mishnah Berurah spells it out. V'im halach misham. By any of these foods that we're going to consider dvar hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam, if you walked away from where you were eating, tzarich lachzor l'mkaimai, you have to go back to your place where you were keveya, where you ate, ulevarich, and you have to make the bracha achrona over there, k'moi legabe pas, as we know the halacha is by pas. Ois Cotton Mem Dalid, we had the middle shita, which was the second opinion brought down by the Mechaber, that says that mine dogon. Says the Mishnah Berurah, why would mine dogon be different than anything else? If you want to go like the first opinion in Sif Hey, that's the Shitas HaRambam, so I can understand. All the Shivas Aminim have a chashivas that is Shivas Aminim. So maybe for all the Shivas Aminim, they're dvar hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam. But the second opinion is splitting even the Shivas Aminim. He's not saying that all Shivas Aminim require bracha bimkaimam. He's saying only mine dogon. So why? What is it that's special about mine dogon that they should require bracha bimkaimam? Says the Mishnah Berurah, chashivusan shenikra mazayin. Because we make a boirei mine mizoinos on mine dogon. They're called mine mazoin. They're called foods that satiate and nourish. So those are more chashuva foods than foods that are just maybe l'tainug ba'alma, that aren't considered mazoin. So because they're chashuv and they're mazoin, maybe they require bracha bimkaimam. Then we had the shita that the Ramah brought down, the most limited shita, that says no, only pas is considered davar hatzarich bracha bimkaimam. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut men hey levad, only pas alone. Kasra achrayim yachrayim right the lechatchila yachmer levarich bimkaiman afilu b'shiva haminim. The Mishnah Berurah brings down that yachrayim say that we should go lechumra and we should go back to make the bracha achrayna by any one of the shivas haminim. So by any of the shivas haminim, we should be machmir and consider them to be dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam, to the extent that if we eat them, we should go back to make the bracha achrayna in the place that we ate them. Okay, so that's a chumrah. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, v'chein le'inyan shine makayim, but there's also a kula. Since we're being machmir and we're calling all of the shivas haminim dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam, that brings together with it also a kula. What's the kula? Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'chein le'inyan shine makayim, we're also going to consider all of the shivas haminim to be dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam l'kula. Now, when it comes to the question of Shina Makom, Ein Sarach Levarech al Kol Hashiva Minim Kemay al Apas Im Shina Mekoimai. If you make a Shina Makom by any one of the Shiva Saminim, we're not going to recognize it as creating a problem of Shina Makom. Because, again, we paskin like the Ramah, anything that we call davar hatzarich bracha bimkaimai, we say that Shina Makom is a non-issue. Now, if we're going to be machmir on the Shiva Saminim, and we're going to call them dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam, and we're going to require you to go back to the place where you ate them to make the bracha achrona, then we're also going to call them dvarim hatzrichim bracha bimkaimam lekula. And we're going to say that lekula, if you made a Shina Makom, the Shina Makom is irrelevant. We're not going to worry about the Shina Makom. So if you masha pasuk b'sif beis b'haga. However, the Mishnah Berurah does bring down a dissenting opinion. He says, "V'das hagra b'Berurah." It's the opinion of the Gra and the Biur Gra. Today ha'imtsaris hi ha'ikar ledina. The Gra paskins like the middle shita, like the second opinion brought down by the Mechaber, which is the Shitas HaRosh. The Gra paskins like the Shitas HaRosh, who says, Mine Dagon. Mine Dagon, grain-based products, those are Dvarim HaTzricha Bracha Bimkaimam, but not all of the Shiva Saminim. Well, and according to this, says the Mishnah Berurah, Peiros Shel Shiva Saminim, the fruits of the Shiva Saminim, olives, pomegranates, grapes, Doimim Lustam Peiros, according to the Gra, they would have the same halacha as an apple or a pear. The Shaykh B'hu Shina Makom L'Kulei Alma, where Shina Makom would apply. Okay. Now we go to Sivav. So we're speaking over here about making a hefsek in the middle of a Suda, and we have been speaking about the hefsek of Shina Makom, of leaving the place where you were eating and going to a different place. Now brings down the Mechaber another hefsek. Says the Mechaber, Misha Niskar B'Soicha Suda. Somebody is sitting in the middle of a Suda. So somebody sat down, he washed, he's having maybe a late lunch. So Misha Niskar B'Soicha Suda Shalo Yispalel. He realizes he didn't have a mincha. It's getting close to Shkia, and he didn't have a mincha. V'amad v'yispalel. So he gets up to have a mincha in the middle of his Suda. Does that constitute a hefsek in the Suda? Are you now required to make a new bracha rishona on the foods that you want to continue eating after you daven? Interesting question. Says the Mechaber, Afilu im ein shahus ligmar sudasai ulehispalo. Says the Mechaber, even in a case where halacha is going to force the person to go daven in the middle of his Suda. What does that mean? Well, like the Mechaber says here, Afilu im ein shos ligmar sudasayu lehispalel. Let's say the fellow looks at his watch and he says, there's no way I could finish eating before Shkia. So I must stop right now and daven mincha, otherwise I'm going to lose mincha. Now, in that case, halacha is forcing him to interrupt his Suda and go daven. And while he's davening, he can't eat. Right? Can't eat Milishman Esrei. So here we have a case where somebody's in the middle of a Suda, and now, halachically, he is being forced to interrupt his Suda and create a situation where halachically it is forbidden for him to eat. Because he must break the Suda, he must go daven Shemon Esrei for Mincha, during which he can't eat. So one would think that that would be a bona fide hefsek. How can it not be a hefsek? I made a moitzi, I'm eating pas, and now halacha tells me, stop eating, go daven Shemon Esrei. And while you daven Shemon Esrei, you can't eat bread. Can't eat anything. So one would think that that's a bona fide hefsek. Says the Mechaber, no. Even if there is not enough time for the person to finish his Suda and then daven, so memela halachically he's being forced to interrupt his Suda, shechayiv lahafsik, in this case he's mechuyev, he's obligated to make a hefsek in the Suda, and he is not going to be halachically permitted to continue eating until after he finishes davening. Im kol zeh lo heavy hefsek. Im kol zeh. All of this notwithstanding, the davening in the middle of the Suda does not constitute a hefsek, and since it's not a hefsek, you're not mechuyev to make a new bracha rishona. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Memvav. V'i efshel lechol, he can't possibly eat. What the Mechaber wants to say is, one would think, yesh l'damoisai, that halakhically we should compare this to a case that we can have Mirz Hashem in Tzivik Kof Ayin Tes. Lahav lon unevarech. We should compare this to somebody who's eating a Suda, he finishes his main dish, and he says, Havlon unevarech. Bring us the kais of Birkas Hamazon, and let's bench. So in other words, dealing with a person, he washed the Til Sidayin, he made a moitzi, he ate the bread, he ate the farshbais, he had the appetizer. Now he had the entree with all the side dishes. And he doesn't realize that they're bringing anything for dessert. So he finishes the main dish, he finishes all his side dishes, he takes the last couple of things he wants to eat, he wipes his face with a napkin, he leans back in the chair, and he says, okay, let's bench. Now, clearly, in his mind, the suit is over. That's why he said, let's bench. Or in the parlance of Chazal, Havlon unevarech. Bring us the kais for Birkas Hamazon, and let's bench. Now, in Kuf Ayin Tes, we're going to see, there's a shita that holds that once you say, Havlon unevarech, you're not allowed to eat anymore. Because by you making the statement, Havlon unevarech, you have exposed your das that you were not expecting to eat anything more. So now, if you change your mind, and if they tell you, oh, by the way, we're going to have a dessert. Oh, we're having Napoleons? Oh, bring me a Napoleon. That's called nimlach. That means that you gave up on eating, you decided you're not eating anything more, and then when you heard about the Napoleons, you were nimlach, you changed your mind, and you decided to eat more. But nimlach requires a new bracha rishayna, because the original bracha rishayna that you made terminated when you said Havlon unevarech, and you exposed the fact that your das was that your meal was over. So your original bracha rishayna is gone. Now you want to eat a Napoleon, you're nimlach. You changed your mind. You decided you want to eat more. Nimlach, you need a new bracha rishayna. Says the Chavetz Chaim, I might have thought that if somebody has to get up in the middle of his Suda and daven mincha, and if halachically he must do so, because he doesn't have enough time to finish the Suda and then daven mincha, so he must daven mincha now halachically, maybe that's the equivalent of Havlon unevarech. Because he's breaking the Suda, he's deciding to go daven, during which time he cannot possibly eat. You want to eat after that? It's nimlach. It's a new session of eating. So says the Mishnah Berurah inside. You would have thought that this case is comparable to Havlon unevarech. And according to the Shita in Siman Kof Ayin Tes, who holds that once you say Havlon unevarech, you're not allowed to continue eating without a new bracha rishayna. So tzarich levarech yishachayzer lechol. Avo be'emes, but the truth is, says the Mishnah Berurah, loy dami. These two cases, the case of Havlon unevarech and the case of somebody who has to daven mincha, are not comparable. Why? The Hasam, because over there by Havlon unevarech, Hatam, the reason why you're not allowed to eat anything more unless you make a new bracha rishayna is Rishon Dahave Hesek Hadas V'siluk. Because over there, when you say Havlon unevarech, you're making it very clear that you are mesiach das from eating. That you removed your das from doing any additional eating. That's why you said, let's bench. V'siluk. And you took your mind off. You gave up on eating. That's why you need to make a new bracha rishayna. Masha'ein hacha, but over here, when the fellow has to take a break in the middle of the Suda and daven Shemoneh Esrei, he wasn't mesiach das from eating. He knows that the Suda is continuing. He knows that he's getting up for a few minutes in middle of the Suda to go daven Shemoneh Esrei. So he looks around and he says, you know what, give me a few minutes. I got to daven Shemoneh Esrei because I'm afraid I'm going to miss the mincha. I'll eat the next course when I finish. He's not mesiach das on eating. It's true that while he's davening Shemoneh Esrei, he can't eat, but he wasn't mesiach das from eating. And therefore, it's cut mem zayin. Therefore, the Mechaber said, "Lo have a hefsek." The davening does not constitute a hefsek. Says the Chavetz Chaim in the Mishnah Berurah, is cut mem zayin. Lo have a hefsek. Uladas ha-Mechaber b'Sif Aleph, and according to the sheet of the Mechaber that we saw in Sif Aleph, okay, what the Mishnah Berurah is going to do now is like this. He's saying, what did the Mechaber just say? The Mechaber just said that breaking in middle of your Suda and davening does not constitute a hefsek. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Let's put this in perspective. Let's make sure that we check off all the boxes, dot all the I's, across all the T's. According to the Shita Sabachaber in Sif Aleph, who holds that Shinem Mokaim is a problem, even by Pas, even by Dvar Matzrichim Bracha Bimkaimam, who Dafka Kishem Ispal Bebeisai. This psak of the Mechaber over here in Sivav, that davening does not create a hefsek that requires you to make a new bracha rishona, that's only if you're going to daven in the house. If you're davening by the kaisel, if you're davening in the house, so then you're right. The davening itself is not a hefsek, and you didn't make a shidduch makam. Avalim hoylek lebeis hakneses. But if you got up from the table and you said, you know what, I'm going to run down the block to catch a mincha, well, according to the Mechaber, that's shidduch makam. Maybe it's true that you're in the middle of a suda where you washed and you made a maitzi, and you're eating dvar mahatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, you got to come back home to bench. But according to the Mechaber, that doesn't help. According to the Mechaber, that's considered a shidduch makam. So when the Mechaber says that davening in the middle of the suda does not constitute a hefsek, that's only true according to the Mechaber if you davened at home. But if you went to shul, then according to the Mechaber, it is a hefsek because it's shidduch makam. Achein, however, but for us, who we paskin like the Ramah, lo you have a hefsek afki shaholchu lebeis hakneses. It's not a hefsek even if you went to shul. You could look around the table and say, you know what, I'm going to go up the block and catch him and I'll be back soon. And when I come back, I'm going to continue eating without a bracha. V'rak im lo yisichu daita milechel. But that's only true if you're not Mesiach Das. If taka, you had in mind that I'm going to come back and continue eating, so you weren't Mesiach Das. Kosav Magen Avram, the Magen Avram writes, Da'afta hamoitzi ein tzarich levarich makmas hefsek atfila. Even though the Mechaber is paskening over here that you don't have to make a new hamoitzi after you finish davening, because the davening does not constitute a hefsek. Aval netilas yadayim tzarich. But you do have to wash over again. Deshem eloi shamar yadav. Because, says the Magen Avram, we know that if you're Mesiach Das from Shmiras HaYadayim, which we learned that Hilchos Netilas Yadayim really means that you were Mesiach Das from the Suda completely. In other words, we mentioned then, you're not mechuyev to sit the whole time by the Suda and remind yourself, oh, I'm watching my hands, I'm watching my hands, I'm watching my hands. No. As long as you're involved in the Suda, we assume that Shmiras Yadayim, you're being careful because you know you need to keep your hands clean during the Suda. But now we're talking about somebody who got up to go daven. So says the Magen Avram, if you got up to go daven in the middle of the Suda, it's true that you don't have to make another hamaitzi. But Netilas Yadayim you do have to make. Deshem eloi shamar yadav. Because maybe once you got up from the table to go do something else, to go daven, maybe you're not washing your hands anymore. And if you're not protecting your hands from touching something unclean, you need a new Netilas Yadayim. Aval, however, says the Mishnah Berurah, Harbi Achreinim Cholkin Alav. Many Achreinim argue on this Magen Avram with Sfiralahu, and they hold Daf Netilas Yadayim and Itzarch. You don't even have to wash over again. Why? A very logical explanation. The whole time you're eating, we're not worried that you might cause your hands to become unclean. But in the middle of davening, you also can't cause your hands to become unclean. Davening also needs Nikiyas Yadayim. So what? You interrupted the Suda to go daven, now suddenly we're worried about the cleanliness of your hands? But the only reason you interrupted the Suda was to daven. By davening, you also need clean hands. So l'chayra, we're not going to say that you were Mesiach Das from Shmiras HaYadayim while you were davening Shemana Esrei. You can't touch something unclean while you're davening Shemana Esrei. Aval bazed dafka im mispal bebeisai. But this is only true, again, if you're davening in the house. But let's say us, who paskin like the Ramah. So we said, you're in the middle of a Suda ala pas, you got up to go down the block to daven. According to the Ramah, shidduch makam is not an issue. So you could go out to shul and then come back and continue eating. Right? Now the question is Shmiras Yadayim. You didn't get up from the table and go to daven Shemana Esrei. You got up from the table and you went and you walked in the street to go to shul. While you're walking in the street going to shul, your mind is not on Shmiras Yadayim. Kishachazar, when you come back, tzarich lital yadav, you have to wash it new netilas yadayim, abaru b'li bracha. But you don't make a new bracha of al netilas yadayim. This, I've seen this halacha be very negeya. One time that I often see it being negeya is, let's say, on Purim. Somebody starts the Purim Suda early, starts the Purim Suda at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and we know that the Purim Suda very often goes for a very long time, and the guy wants to go daven mincha with a minyan. He says, I'm going to go down the block to the shul to daven mincha. So the halacha is, assuming that by the Purim Suda you washed, so it's dvar matzrichim bracha mimkaimam, we pass it like the Ramah. You could go make the Shida Makkah, but you don't have to make new brachas when you came back. Yes, the Ramah says that lechatchila you shouldn't do it, but it could be by the Purim Suda. There are very good reasons why you do want to do it. You don't want to bench now. The Suda is not even over. It'll be a real shas chak. So you want to go daven, but when you come back, the Mishnah Berurah is saying you got to wash the tilas yadayim again, albeit without a bracha. Siv Zayin, a halacha that very often is negeya. Adam sheyashein b'soich sudasai. Somebody who falls asleep in the middle of the Suda. So it's the Shabbos day Suda, and the cholent was a really good cholent, and now you're falling asleep on the table. Adam sheyashein b'soich sudasai. If somebody sleeps in the middle of a Suda, shinas arai, even if it's just a shinas arai, lo yav hefsek. A shinas arai is not a hefsek. In the middle of the Suda, you fall asleep, a shinas arai, that's not a hefsek. Says the Ramah, Hagav v'chenim hifsik b'shar divrei rishus. Also, other small hefsekim for optional things do not constitute a hefsek. Somebody had to get up to go to the Beis HaKisei. That does not constitute a hefsek. It doesn't require you to make a new bracha rishona, the kayotza b'zeh, or other such things that you get up and walk away from the table. You make a hefsek in the Suda for a minute or two for a dvar harishus. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Shinas Arai, Avalim Shah Meshach Zban LeErech Shah. But if you sleep for an hour in the middle of the Suda, Kevin Chenenas Bishina. Oh, I'm sorry. Va'afilu im Shah Meshach Zban LeErech Shah. Even if you fall asleep by the table and you sleep for an hour, Kevin Chenenas Bishina. If you fell asleep ba'onis, loy mikri hefsek. That's not called a hefsek. Ve'in sark levarach hamoitzi, and you don't have to make a new hamoitzi when you wake up. Aval netilas yadayim boy, but a new netilas yadayim you need, but again, ubali bracha without a bracha. Because while you're sleeping, yadayim askani oisem, you don't know, you might have touched an unclean part of your body. But what if you go to your bed in the middle of the Suda? You go to the bed to take a nap in the middle of the Suda. Have a hefsek. That is a hefsek. Because that's a mamish leaving the Suda. That's siluk. You're leaving the Suda and you're being Mesiach Das to go to sleep in bed. You get up, go to the Beis HaKisei in the middle of the meal. That does not constitute a hefsek. But again, unetilas yadayim tzarich. But you do need the tilas yadayim kimavur b'siman kaf samach dalad ayin sham, where we came out basically in the Mishnah Berurah that for ketanim you don't need netilas yadayim with a bracha, but for gedolim you do. Okay, we're going to stop over here at the end of this Siman. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be Megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe Hashem should send Yeshua's refuahs, parnas, and shidduchim to all those in need. We should be zeicher to see the Geula Shleima with the Bias Gal Tzedek. B'meher of Yameinu, Amen. Be well.